What's up, Vertical Youth? We are so glad you are here for this group night tonight. We are super pumped and we can't wait to share a special guest with you. But before that, I'm going to give you some dates that you need to know that are coming up, all right? So next week, July 26th, we are going to be meeting at the West Haven Beach, all right? So listen to this message and you'll understand why we're going to the beach, and we can't wait to see you guys there. And then August 9th, that is coming up in just 3 weeks, already 3 weeks away. August 9th is our next one night, and we're going to have super slides, we're going to have water slides, we're going to have a big slip and slide in the back like we just had at this previous one night, and we can't wait to see you guys there. And also, August 9th, that is the last day to sign up for our summer retreat. Last day. I can't believe it. August 21st through the 23rd is our summer retreat, and August 9th is the last day to sign up. So make sure when you go home, if you're not signed up, you get signed up with your parents. All right, watch this video.
Hey guys, how you doing? It's Pastor Randal here, and I'm so excited to be in the room with you and talking to you about something that's very near and dear to my heart. That is the love of Jesus. Telling people about the love of Jesus, expressing the love of Jesus to people around you, being the hope of the world. These are the things that we get to do as believers in Jesus Christ. In fact, it's kind of not an option if, in fact, you listen to what Jesus has told us to do. He says, go and tell. And I love this scripture in Romans that's going to kind of set up my talk a little bit. It's Romans 10, verses 14 through... we'll take it all the way to 15. It says, how then can they call on the one they have not believed in? Good question. And how can they believe in the one whom they have not heard? And how can they hear without someone preaching it to them? It's pretty simple, right? When we understand the importance of allowing people to know about Jesus, that there is a God who loves them, that there is a God that we have placed our hopes in. There's a God that we've encountered personally that hopefully has radically transformed our hearts, our minds, our hurts, our habits, our hang-ups. God is the solution for so many of our issues. In fact, He's more than sufficient for everything that will come against us. So, this scripture is pretty important. It says, it's great. We know that people need to know about Jesus, but how are they going to know who to trust if you haven't told them about the one that they should trust in? And how are they going to hear if no one tells them? And if no one tells them, how are they going to get to the point where they would consider Jesus and have the same hope that we have? Okay, that's a good question. Say, thank you, Pastor Randal. That's a great question. I'm just kidding. I know that this gets to be a kind of a tricky topic, especially now in today's culture where we don't want to offend anybody. God forbid we make somebody uncomfortable or we disagree with what they believe in, right? And we've got into this idea of, well, to each his own. As long as you're not hurting anybody, but that's not biblical truth. That's not biblical understanding. And honestly, guys, it truly is not love. One of the excuses, or a couple of excuses that a lot of people have told me, and I've suffered through myself, don't get me wrong, about being fearful of telling somebody about Jesus is, what if they ask me a question I don't know? Like, I'm going to look stupid, or I'm going to misrepresent God somehow, and I'm going to look like a fool, and they'll never go to Jesus ever again. That's a lie of the enemy. The other one is, I don't want to make people uncomfortable. They're never going to accept them anyways. They're so far gone. That's not true, and that's really not fair. And how would you like it if somebody would have applied that to your life? Probably not so great. Because Jesus says, the Father actually says, He longs for not one to be separated from Him. So God's heart is for all of creation to know Him, to adore Him, to walk in Him. But He says, you have to share the love that I have given you with the others around you. And the other one is what if I don't know what to say? I don't want to be stupid. I don't want people to think I'm a jerk. Well, then don't be a jerk. It's that simple. And there's another scripture in it's in Isaiah 51:61 where God says, I will give you the words to speak. This is where it becomes about trust. This is where it comes to loving people the way that God has first loved us. It's tricky sometimes. I get it. Especially if, it's somebody that you're not that comfortable with. But God will alert your heart to share with the people that you're supposed to share with. The one way that you can share is first by being an example. Live your life like a crazy person. Live your life like somebody who is just so filled with love and so filled with joy that there's something attractive about you. You'd be surprised if you lived like you were redeemed, if you lived like you were righteous, people would ask you what's going on with you. They would want to know about the God that you have. The other thing is don't use weird religious words. Just talk to people. Be nice to people. And don't think that you have to win the argument. You're just having a lovely conversation with a friend. Okay, so the best thing we can do is practice. Does that seem weird? To practice sharing our testimony or practice leading somebody to take their next step with God? It's not weird. It shouldn't be weird. And you have people in your group right now. What I'd like you to do is break into some groups of 2 and share something. One of you can play the person that is sad, the one who's lost, or the one that doesn't really care about God. And one of you can practice sharing your testimony. Listen, our testimony, there's power in that. And you might say, well, I never really have a testimony. My family's always brought me to church, and I don't have anything exciting in my life. I've never really overcome anything. Guys, that's a huge part of your testimony. The fact that you haven't had to overcome anything, that you haven't had to deal with crazy emotions because you've gone too far with someone sexually, or you got drunk and embarrassed yourself, or you have an addiction problem because you went too far. If you have been living a life with Jesus for all of your life, that's huge, and that can preach just as well. So what I always do is I'm going to give you an example of me sharing a testimony with a friend who's going through something maybe similar to what I went through. Okay, you ready? Hey man, how you doing? Yeah, good. Hey, listen, I heard that you were having issues with your son. Oh, yeah, I'm so sorry to hear that he's sick. Listen, man, I don't know how you feel about this, but my son, when he was little, he had these crazy seizures. We'd be holding him, and literally his eyes would flutter, and he'd go, and then all of a sudden he'd pop out of it and laugh. It was weird, and we thought it was cute at first, but then we realized, wait a minute, when he's watching TV, we'd call his name and he'd just be limp. Turns out that he was having these crazy seizures. The doctor, the neurologist, said that he hadn't seen him like this before in a child his age. He was having like 25 in 20 minutes of sleep. They had to put all these monitors and stuff on his head to measure. And long story short, I know your son's not dealing with that same sickness, but what happened to my son was pretty crazy, because he was never meant to drive. He was never meant to do a lot of things that I'd like him to be able to do, operate machinery, all these different things, because they thought at any moment he could pass out and kill somebody if he was driving a car. So I don't know if you know, but I have a relationship with God, and it's pretty important to me for reasons like this. One, that my life has been completely changed, but the other thing is I prayed to God about my son's sickness, and God showed up. My son went into this amazing emergency facility that they were going to monitor him for 48 hours. I mean, these seizures were severe. We prayed one night. We had been praying for a month or 2 months probably and not seen any change. And then one day I met a guy on the train who asked me the same question I just asked you. How's your son doing? I didn't know this guy, though. It was nuts. He told me that God showed him that my son was sick and to stop praying. And I kind of got a little bit angry, but then after I thought about it, I was like, okay, God does say that he answers our prayer. So I went home that day. The next day we went to the hospital, 0 seizures. The doctor of 28 years, this surgeon, whatever, neurologist guy, said in 28 years he had never seen anything like it, that it was impossible that he would go from this severe to no seizures at all. And I don't know if that's the same case for your son. I do know, though, that we have a God who loves us. He loves you. He sees the pain you're going through. In fact, he watched his own son suffer pretty badly on our behalf. I don't know, have you ever considered maybe asking God to intervene for your son, or even intervene in your life? I know it's a lot to think about, but I want you to know I'm here for you. And even if today, if you wanted me to pray for you, I can do that. Listen, I prayed for my son, and he was healed. And it had nothing to do with me and everything to do with my God, with Jesus Christ and what he did for me. Would you like me to pray for you? I don't know. That's a long one. That's one of my personal testimonies that I could relate to somebody else's. Maybe one of you's, testimony was, I went to hey man, you look sad. I just recently went to this winter camp with my church, and it totally wasn't lame. I met so many nice people. The biggest thing, though, is I encountered God, like for real. Like I went up there sad. I didn't want to be there. I was angry. I had just gone through a breakup, feeling pretty bad about myself, and I allowed my heart to be open because everybody was being so nice, and I prayed. I prayed this simple, crazy prayer and said, God, if you're real, show yourself to me. And what happened next was amazing. Like my sadness went away. I began to feel joy again. I felt like I was a little kid again. Remember like when we didn't have any worries or any stress? And God completely showed up and transformed the situation. Something as simple as that, guys, sharing a simple testimony is one of the easiest things we can do. It expresses that we have a love not only for God, but for the person we're sharing with. The enemy wants us to be afraid. The enemy wants us to be distracted. And the enemy wants us to just keep our mouths shut. But the Father says, how will they know who to trust unless someone tells them who that someone is? And how will they hear if no one tells them? And how will somebody tell them if they don't preach it to them? We are called as sons and daughters to tell people about our Papa. I'm so excited to hear what you guys are going to do with this challenge. And I pray that even now as you break up and practice with each other, that you would begin to just take it easy, breathe, be yourselves, and let God do the talking. I'm excited for you and super proud of you guys. God bless you. I'm praying for you.